Alright, so y'all go ahead and do the factoring and the math knowledge question for today. Pause the video, and then once everyone is finished, you can unpause the video and I'll go over the correct answers. For the factoring, you should have x plus 11 times x minus 4. For the math knowledge question, you don't want to write this out to 100 decimals. You want to try and figure out a shortcut. So 8, 5, 7, 1, 4, 2, and if you notice, it repeats. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So every 6th digit is going to repeat. So if I do 100 divided by 6, I get like 16 point something. So 16 times 6 is 96. So that means that the 96th digit is a 2, because that would be 16 sets of this string of 6 numbers. So then 97, 98, 99, and 100. The 100th digit would be a 1. So hopefully you didn't write out 100 digits, or you found a pattern to be able to do it. So now we're going to be looking at lesson 37, writing equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. So hopefully after this lesson you'll understand how to do that with your parallel and perpendicular lines. You may already know this from algebra, and if so, that's great. It should be a review, but if not, we'll go over them just in case. So postulate 17 tells you that if you have two lines that are parallel, that means they have the same slope. And then all vertical lines are parallel to each other. So postulate 18 is talking about perpendicular lines. Two non-vertical lines are perpendicular, then the product of their slopes is going to be -1. And then it tells you vertical and horizontal lines are always perpendicular to each other, because those slopes don't multiply to give you -1, because one of them is 0 and one of them is undefined. But for everything else, the product of the slopes is going to be -1. So if you look, this slope here is -3 over 2. This slope is 2 over 3. And if you multiply those, the 3's cancel and the 2's cancel to make it equal just -1. Basically, the slopes are called opposite reciprocals because the product of those two numbers is -1. So your slopes are opposite reciprocals or negative reciprocals. The negative reciprocal of 2/3 is -3 over 2. So let's look here. We want to find the slope of line P. So they tell us there's a point here and here. So we go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we go over 2. So -5 over 2 because we went to the left. For a line that is parallel to P, the slope would also be -5 over 2 because they're going to have the same slope. And then for a line that is perpendicular, it's going to be the negative reciprocal, which would be 2 over 5. Okay? So now we want to state whether the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. The way you need to do that is to put them in y equals mx plus b form, slope-intercept form. So this first one is going to be y equals -1.5x plus 3. And then this bottom one is going to be y equals 1.5x plus 7. So these slopes are not identical. And -1.5 times 1.5 does not equal -1. So that means that they are not perpendicular either. So these are neither. Okay, looking at this next one, we need to divide by 2. So y will equal 4x divided by 2 is 2x, and then plus 1/2. And then y would equal -2x plus 1/2. So again, those slopes aren't identical, and they are not, when you multiply them, they don't equal -1, so they're not negative reciprocals. So these are also neither. These look like they might be related, but they're not parallel or perpendicular. Looking at the next one, we need to solve them for y. So I'm going to say minus 3x. So 4y equals negative 7x plus 12. And then if you divide by 4, you'll have y equals negative 7 over 4x plus 3. And then for this one, 4y equals negative 7x minus 8. And then divide by 4, you have y equals negative 7 over 4x minus 2. So these slopes are the same, so that means that these lines are parallel. So that's how those work. You just have to put them in y equals mx plus b form, and then look at your slope. So we want to find a line that is parallel to this given line and passes through the point negative 4, 3. So we're going to start with y equals mx plus b. Our y value they give us is 3. The slope they want us to use is negative 3 over 2 because they are going to be parallel lines, so they'll have the same slope. Our x is going to be negative 4 because that's what they tell us right here, and then plus b. So if you multiply, 3 is going to equal positive 12 divided by 2 is going to be 6 plus b. So your b value is going to be negative 3. So y equals negative 3 over 2x minus 3. So that's the equation of the line. Now we want to graph the parallel lines. So let's start with the one that they gave us. We're going to go up to 3, and then the slope is negative 3 over 2. So we go down 3 and to the right 2. So there's one line. Then the one that we found, we go to negative 3, and the slope is down 3 and to the right 2. And so there's the other line. So that's how you can find equations given information about a line and another point. Now we're going to try a line that's perpendicular to the line they give us and passes through the point. So the first thing you need to do is find your perpendicular slope. So the reciprocal of 2 is 1/2, and this one's negative, so when we make it negative again, it's going to become positive. So we're going to use y equals mx plus b. So our y value is 3, our slope is 1/2, and our x value is negative 3. So 3 is going to equal negative 1.5. And then if you add 1.5, your b value will be 4.5. So y is going to equal 1/2 x plus 4.5. Which, if you want to write as 9 over 2, you can. Either one is fine with me. Now it wants us to graph them. So let's graph the line they gave us first. So go to negative 3, and then we're going to go down 2 and over 1. So that's the line they gave you. And then the line we found went through 4.5. So that's up here. And we went up 1 over 2. Or, those aren't exactly right. We have to be in between because it's 4.5. So when we go up, we're going to be at 5.5. And then when we go up again, we're going to be at 6.5. And then we go down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2. So that would be your two perpendicular lines. Okay, so now we're going to look at example 5. We have one machine at a pickle factory that can fill 2 jars in 3 seconds, and a newer machine can fill 3 jars in 2 seconds. The new machine started 5 seconds after the old one. When will the output exceed the first machine? And it wants us to do a graph. So what we need to do is do the first machine. So our x-axis is going to become our time, and this is going to be the number of jars that they fill. So at time 0 for the first machine, we have none filled. And it says we can fill 2 jars after 3 seconds. So after 3 seconds, 2 jars are filled. So after another 3 seconds, another 2 jars are filled. And then after another 3 seconds, another 2 jars are filled. So that would be the equation for the first one. Now for the second one, it starts after 5 seconds, so it doesn't start until here. And we want to know when they'll be, basically when they'll be equal. And it says it can do 3 jars in 2 seconds. So in 2 seconds, it can do 3 jars. So in another 2 seconds, it can do another 3 jars. And look, that's where they meet each other. And it's going to keep increasing above the blue line. So that's at 9 here. So at 9 seconds is when the new machine will start to outpace the old one. Alright, so y'all see if y'all can do this practice problem by yourself, and then I'll go over it. So the slope, we go up 2 and over 5. So parallel would be 2 over 5, and then perpendicular would be negative 5 over 2. At practice problems B and C, and see if y'all can figure out if they are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Once y'all are finished, unpause the video and I'll go over them. So this one we need to make 3y equals negative x plus 6 and divide by 3. And so now we need to compare the slopes. So one of them is 3 and one of them is negative 1/3. Those aren't the same, but they are negative reciprocals, so these lines are perpendicular. For this next one, we need to solve for y, so divide by 4 and then subtract 2x. So we have 1/2 and negative 2. Both of those are not the same, but they are negative reciprocals, so these lines are also perpendicular. So that's how that works. Looking at D, see if you can find and graph a line that is parallel to the given line and goes through the origin. So you don't have to graph the original line, just the new one. So we want it to be parallel, so our slope is going to be negative 2. And if it goes through the origin, that's 0, 0. So y equals mx plus b. Your y is 0, and your x is 0. So your b value is 0. So your equation is just y equals negative 2x. So when you graph it, you're going to start at the origin, and then it goes down 2 and to the left 1. Or up to, I said to the left, I meant to the right, or up to and to the left 1. And so that would be your line. And then that's your equation right here. Okay? Looking at one more, we want to do the exact same thing, find and graph a line that is perpendicular and goes through the point 2, 3. So our perpendicular slope is going to be positive 3 over 4. So y equals mx plus b. And then if you multiply, you'll get 3 over 2, which if you want to make it 1.5, you can. either one is fine with me. And then when you subtract, you're going to get either 3 over 2 or 1.5. So your equation will be y equals 3/4 plus 3/2, or plus 1.5, either one. And we want to graph it. So we're going to start at 1.5, and we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, and over 4. And then you're going to do that again. And then you connect your dots. And that would be your answer. Okay, so now we're going to look at a question about rowers in a river or in a stream. We want to write an equation to represent the distance that they travel, and will the second rower catch up? Why or why not? So let's look at the first rower. His rate is 2 meters per second, so that's his slope. And then the second rower is traveling at a rate of 2.1. Okay, because that says that's what his rate is. So that's the first thing you want to do, set up your slopes. Now we need to find an equation. So we're going to say y equals 2x, and then they tell us about this 4. So the first rower is 4 meters ahead of the second one, so that means that we need to add 4 to this first one's distance. And then the equation of this one is going to be 2.1x. So now we just need to figure out, will the second rower ever catch up? Well, we can set them equal to each other. 2x plus 4 equals 2.1x. So 4 would equal 0.1x. So x would equal 40. So that is solvable. So that means that that's how long it's going to take for the rower to catch up to the first one. So yes, they will intersect at some point, and it's at 40. Okay, so now we're going to look at our challenge question. So let's see if y'all can do this one by yourself, and then I'll go over it. So y'all go ahead and pause the video. So we're going to look at the lines described by the equation y minus 5 equals m times x minus 2. And m is any real number. So this is a lot of different lines. It says how many lines are described by the equation? Well, technically, it's an infinite number. Because m can be any number, and there are infinitely many real numbers, so we can have any number of lines here. Are any of them parallel? No. And that is because m is the slope, and it is different for each line. So they can't have the same slope. Or be parallel. Okay, so that should be your answers for your challenge question. We're going to be doing 1 through 30 for our homework tonight, so make sure you do those so we can go over any questions you have tomorrow.